Hello, sixth graders, and welcome to the Quahog Cup Reading Challenge for the year. I am going to book talk the 31 books that are on the list. We ask that you read at least 10 of them between now and April is when we will have the Quahog Cup Challenge. As you go to the first slide, I have a sampling of the book so that you can see that there is a wide variety. We have realistic fiction, graphic novels, fantasy fiction, and books about magic. So we're hoping that there's something on the list that will interest everyone. The first books that we're going to talk about are the scary books. And the first book that I really want to mention is right here. It's called The Evil Wizard Smallbone, and it's by Delia Sherman. And it's the story of Nick Renault, who runs away from home one night. He lives in Maine. He lives with his uncle and cousin, who are abusive, and he finds himself on the steps of Evil Wizard books. And he's taken in by the curmudgeonly evil wizard Smallbone, who runs the bookshop. And he puts him to work as an apprentice in the bookshop. And during that time, Nick starts to learn magic. He teaches it to himself, but he also learns it from these very snarky textbooks who seem to be able to pop off the shelf and talk to him and teach him some of the magic that is sort of embedded within him. In the meantime, he starts to find himself embroiled in the middle of a feud between Fidaloo, who is a werewolf and who has a werewolf pack of motorcycle riders who want to take over Smallbone Cove, which has been run by the evil wizard Smallbone for centuries. The next book that I want to talk to you about is down here. It's called The Night Gardener, and this is by Jonathan Auxier. After the disappearance of their parents, Molly and Kip find themselves homeless and they need to take care of themselves. And they decide to leave Ireland. It's in the middle of a potato famine, and they land in England, but they're penniless and homeless. So they decide that because they're desperate for jobs, they're going to seek employment as servants at this place called Windsor House. But they hear from the townspeople that there are some very strange things that happen at Windsor House, that it's not quite right. And when they get there, they see that the house is eerie and it's very dark and it's creepy. And there's a twisted old tree that grows up next to the house as well as through the house. And they do notice that the Windsor family is very strange. And then they start to realize that there is indeed a night gardener that is haunting them. And this spirit of the night gardener can grant your fondest wishes, but in order to make the wishes come true, you have to give up a part of your soul. So, will Molly and Kip be able to not only save themselves, but the Windsor family? Only if they can destroy the night gardener. The next one is right here, and it's called Scar Island by Dan Gamenhart. And it's the story of Jonathan Grisby. Now, Jonathan has done something that he considers unforgivable, and he's sent to a reform school. It's called the Slabhenge Reformatory School, and it's run by a former military man who is very cruel to the boys. And they find themselves in very sort of regimented and not being well fed and not being well cared for. One day, though, as fate would have it, all of the adults on the island, except for one, are standing out in the middle of the yard with the boys, and there's a lightning strike, and the lightning strike kills all of the adults. Now, at first, the boys decide to work together to fool the other adults that might be coming to the island, like the ones who are going to restock them with food, to let them think that there are still people on the island, adults who are in charge. But then once those adults go away, the boys find themselves in a struggle to see who is going to be the leader. And the leader turns out to be this strong bully who is after the weakest and the youngest. And so Jonathan has to try to find a way to survive this new world order of these boys running the island. And surprisingly, as he goes deep into the reformatory school, he runs into the only adult who's left, and that's the librarian, who's an old guy who's probably been there for centuries. His pet is a rat, like the one we have up here, and the pet's name is 99 because he's the 99th one that has come out of that family. But what he does is he helps Jonathan try to figure out how to survive on this island with these boys by giving him books like Treasure Island and others that will be the clue to how he will survive. It is a very scary book, and the scariest part is not necessarily the rat or the fact that the island is being swallowed up by water, but it's how other people treat each other. The next one on the list I happen to have right here. It's called The Dark Deep, and it's by Ali Condi. It's a new one for me. I just read it this summer. And it's about a 12-year-old boy named Nico Holland. And Nico has this drone that he lives in Washington, which Washington State is often rainy and has lots of foggy valleys and mists, and sometimes it's hard to see. It can have sort of that kind of creepy atmosphere. Anyway, he goes out to the middle of a field with a few of his friends and he launches this drone that he's built. And then this person comes along. These kids are riding bikes. This boy who picks on him all the time takes the drone and launches it over the edge of the cliff, and it sails through this mist and disappears. Well, Nico decides that he has to recover this drone. So he climbs down the side of the cliff and he finds himself, and his friends go with him, and they find themselves on an island that's hidden in those swirling mists. It's shrouded by dense trees and murky tides, and the island appears uninhabited, but later on you'll find that at one point it was inhabited. And they can't quite shake the feeling that there's something wrong about this place. Their suspicions grow when they stumble upon an abandoned houseboat with lots of curiosities inside, odd looking weapons, unnerving portraits, maps to places they've never heard of, and a glass jar containing something that's very disturbing. So, as the group goes deeper into the unknown of their discoveries and their lives, they begin to intertwine in weird and creepy ways. They've awakened something that's ancient and evil in the dark deep. And their darkest, most terrible secrets are what this beast uses to try and destroy them. And they need to find a way to break away from these figments of their imagination and destroy the beast. The Dark Deep. That's a creepy one. The last one I'm going to talk about is City of Ghosts. It's right here. It's by Victoria Schwab. This is the story of Cass, who actually drowns but comes back to life. And when she comes back to life, she brings with her her best friend, Jacob, who is a ghost, and the ability to see through that sort of thin veil that separates the living from the dead, the veil that she crossed through and then came back. So she's really hoping, after all that's happened to her, that she's going to have a very quiet summer. Now, her parents, who do a television show about ghost hunting, tell her that instead of a quiet summer, they're going to go to Edinburgh, which is supposed to be the most haunted city in the world, Edinburgh, Scotland. When she arrives, the ghosts that are just on the periphery of that veil are plentiful. She sees them walking down the streets. She sees them on the parapets of castles. And when she goes into a world-renowned cemetery, she not only sees them, but she encounters one, the Scarlet Lady, she calls her because she's all dressed in red, who is desperately trying to get back to the side of the living. And it takes all of Cass's strength and help from Jacob to keep her from the Scarlet Lady actually taking over and possessing her and coming to the living side of the veil and moving Cass back to the dead side of the veil. It's a very scary, exciting book, and it's the first in a series of three. And many of the kids who've read this in the past have come into the library looking for Tunnels of Bones, and now the third one that's just recently been released because they want to keep reading about the story of Cass. So I hope you found something among the scary books that will interest you. And I am going to be moving on to the next set of books, and that will be historical fiction. So until then, I will see you soon. Thank you.